So the day has come, as you said. We have actually crossed that threshold. We didn't see another extension. We saw those reciprocal tariffs go into effect, although obviously at much lower rates than we saw originally put forward on April 2nd. But I mean, it's hard to look at this environment and look at where we are today and say we're done. Right? President Trump has made very clear that he sees tariffs as one of his principal tools in international politics. And I think we should expect to see it keep coming out when he sees countries taking moves that he feels impedes the United States' access on trade or in other arenas. We still have ongoing major disagreements between the president and key trading partners like Brazil, and never mind India, which we've seen drastic escalation in the last couple of days.
I mean, you wouldn't want to be Brazil or India, as Tyler just mentioned. Basically 15% is the average baseline tariff, but if you're India, it's 50%, and same for Brazil. Do you see either of those changing? I guess India might be the more likely to strike a deal.
So I think both of those partners have taken a much more firm stance than we've seen from others, right? Actually actively pushing back against the United States and against the president's assertions. Now, there is a difference in how those two have been framed, and in particular with the Brazil tariffs and the escalation in Brazil based a lot on domestic politics in Brazil and the president's perception of how they're treating their former president, Bolsonaro. And that creates actually less room, I think, for Lula da Silva to move forward and find a off-ramp. India's a little different, right? India, Modi has a strong relationship with President Trump that both of them have talked about considerably over the years. And moreover, that he, set out to make a trade deal even before Trump put out tariffs on April 2nd, right? These were trade discussions that started in February and have been plodding along. So the other thing to keep in mind is that new 25% tariff that, again, is supposedly associated with Russian oil imports doesn't go into effect for 21 days. Yet again, opening the aperture for negotiation, for discussion, and for Modi and the team in India to try and find that headline that Trump can take away and declare victory.
Interesting. Mexico is the grand exception to all of this. A 90-day extension was granted. What does Claudia Sheinbaum know about handling Donald Trump that nobody else seems to?
I mean, I certainly think world leaders are probably asking that same question.
They must be calling her directly. What do you know? I mean, unless you're Keir Starmer, you walk in with an invitation from the king. That works pretty well. What is Claudia Sheinbaum? Is it her sense of humor, her ability to call him? Apparently, they talk all the time.
Well, certainly she's put engagement at the forefront of her strategy and treating the president with a level of respect that he demands, and at the same time, standing firmly, but in that respectful manner that somehow has not crossed the president's threshold. The other reality, though, here is that Mexico has a lot of cards in its hand, right? The impact and the economic relationship with the United States is massive, and changes in that relationship, massive increases in tariffs will be felt by American consumers much faster than from other trading partners. So, you combine that with the fact that you've got USMCA still in effect, the president's decision to keep that in effect highlights that there is an apprehension at the White House about moving too quickly on issues that would affect Mexico and to some extent Canada.
In our remaining moment, when we're listening to President Trump last evening, bombshell headline, redhead on the terminal, 100% tariff on chips and semiconductors. But will it apply to anyone? If you're building something in the U.S., you get a carve-out. So who's the tariff on? Huawei?
I think in a surprise to very few people who've been monitoring how the president interacts, this statement, like many others, left us with more questions than answers. I think you're right. An initial read, and certainly how markets are reacting, is that this doesn't impact those major semiconductor producers, particularly TSMC out of Taiwan, Samsung and SK Hynix out of Korea, which have made huge investments in the United States. So it feels like that the president is kind of mapped out a position that doesn't impact the economy significantly. However, there are still really big questions. There are other producers of legacy chips, those older semiconductors that are still integral to things like cars, hundreds of them going into production of an individual vehicle.